Hi. Before we begin, I just wanted to put in a content warning for a few things that come up in this episode. One is racism in the mid 20th century. We have uses of the F slur by a gay individual and instances of a teenager being sexually assaulted by an adult and an adult being sexually assaulted. So just if that's going to be not for you today, totally get it. We'll see you next time. Broshears staged a fake crucifixion on the
Oh,
steps of a telephone company that
what?
had discriminatory hiring practices.
Oh my gosh.
Come with me. You could come with me. Oh, you're such a sweet little misfit. When your smile falls down, I wanna lift it. Wanna make you better. Wanna run away together.
Hello and welcome to D-Listers of History. My name is Fega and I'm your favorite public historian and also co-host. And we have a special guest co-host today, Sam from Labor John.
Hey, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Unfortunately, Ms. All isn't feeling well, so Sam came in last minute to help us out. So
Sorry, everybody.
we appreciate it.
Well, when
Um,
when you sent the feeler out to Labor John, you were like, you don't need to know anything. And I raised my hand and I said, well, you got the right guy here.
yeah, well, I was also kind of like, I need to figure out what I'm doing because this was supposed to be a Mazzal-isode. Um, so I've been reading a book lately called what is it called? Coming Out Republican: The History of the Gay Right. And I'm not through it yet.
Interesting.
I am
Okay.
this is going to tell you exactly the type of person I am. I saw an interview with the guy on Substack who wrote it
Okay.
and was like, I need this book. And I don't usually buy new books, but I could only get it new. So I bought a new book. Um, yeah. So, and I was just really intrigued because, like, I'll be honest, I didn't realize there were gay Republicans until that American Dad episode came out.
Oh, which episode was that?
I looked it up. It came out in 2006. And I already forgot what it was called, but it was like Stan, the main character, was like trying to speak at the Republican National Convention or something. And
Okay.
the only organization he could get sponsored by was the Log Cabin Republicans.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking it was made up because I don't know. It was 2006. I was in college. What did I know?
It was a different time. We were different. We were different people.
Yeah, thank God I'm different. But I, of course, was an avid watcher of American Dad because I was in college and
Of course.
left leaning and vaguely politically active. And so I was just really, when I found out they were real, I was like, wait, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, they do exist, but it's like it's a strange dynamic, of course.
Yeah,
It's
especially
like
back in those days.
yeah, it's like I wanna learn more. It's like, what do you believe? It's like, I would think there'd be too many conflicting conflicts in there, but
Yeah, so that's why when I saw this book existed and I read the interview and the author seemed to be coming at it from a really respectful place.
mhm.
Is I think it'd be easy to come at it from like, look at these idiots.
Yeah,
Um,
but that
but
that doesn't do favors for anybody.
right. And so when it became clear it wasn't that, I was like, okay, I need to read this book because I don't understand what's happening here. And then Mazal couldn't do it. And I had just read about this guy in the book, and he's a whole mess. Oh my gosh.
And
It's
you were
right there.
so excited that you had to record an episode about it.
Yeah. I would have loved to have done a little more research, but we're gonna make it work. Also the author of that book, by the way, is Neil J. Young.
Okay.
Okay. So
Neil Young? Okay.
yeah,
Alright,
different.
great.
I assume that's why he put the J in there. Um, so we're talking about Reverend Raymond Broshears.
Oh, hey, hey, my.
Yeah, and he is arguably one of the most controversial gay rights figures of the 60s and 70s. And I feel like
Interesting.
I'd heard of him in passing. Like when I saw a picture of him, I was like, that looks familiar. But I didn't like know about him. Like he's no Harvey Milk, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, he's on this podcast, so that's all he's
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's true.
And so he was born Earl Raymond Allen in February
Mhm.
of 1935 in Centerville, Illinois, which is in southwest Illinois, so like the middle of nowhere. His mother remarried three years later and changed his last name to his stepfather's last name, Broshears, and then just abandoned her kid.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah,
start.
left
Th
him at grandma's house.
This sounds like a Labor John episode too. That's how
Yeah.
all of them start.
It's like, and then the parents disappeared, or like a Disney movie. Um,
Same thing.
so he grew up with his grandmother, but he also his like aunts were around his age, so he called his grandma mom. Like this was
Yeah, one of those things.
yeah, and so he was an extremely religious kid, and grandma was hoping he'd grow up to be a preacher.
Hmm.
And he was on that path. When he was 14, he taught at the local Bible school. And at 15, he became superintendent of Midway Baptist Mission Church.
Okay.
I couldn't find a website for that church. But I think Midway Baptist is like a whole big group. There's a lot of these like mega churches that they're like franchises.
Yeah. Open yours today.
And I think this might be one of those, though this is pre-mega church time, so I don't know. But anyway, a Newsweek article I read from 2018 said that they still in 2018 considered homosexuality a sin. So
Oh,
I'm guessing
great.
that hasn't changed, but
Yeah.
I couldn't find them, so I don't know for sure. He dropped out of school at 16 to work at a hospital in Peoria, which was like the big city, I guess, if you're
Mhm.
from Centerville. But less than a year later, he enlisted in the Navy as a medical corpsman. He didn't last that long in the Navy. Just a couple years later, in 1955, but he wasn't quite 20 yet. He was discharged for what he claimed were medical reasons related to a head injury.
Okay.
He definitely had a head injury, that's true. But later on in his life, it came out that he was sexually assaulted.
Oh,
And
shit.
that was the real reason he left the Navy.
All right.
And
Well, that's a
yeah,
reason.
I know, right?
I was gonna make a gay joke about the Navy, but now bad timing.
That's why we edit. I have
Editing.
to admit, and
What's that?
I say this as a certified gay. I had the same thought.
Yeah. Well, I say
Like, oh,
this
the
as a
Navy.
certified half gay person, half
Yeah.
gay man. That yes, that joke would have came out of a place of love.
Yes. So he did have a head injury and really struggled with his health. He spiraled after that for a long time. He moved
Yeah.
around a lot. He was diagnosed at a hospital in Palo Alto as having, quote, schizophrenic reaction, paranoid, and incompetent.
Ooh, oh, damn.
Yeah. Now, back in this is the 50s and 60s. They were like throwing those words around like
Yeah,
nobody's
they were like,
business.
lobotomy? You need a
Yeah.
lobotomy.
Like, oh, you're anxious and depressed. Have you considered cocaine?
Have you considered not being depressed?
It's actually a little later than the have you tried cocaine, but that's my favorite era of history of medical history. It's
Me
like,
too.
have you tried cocaine? I'm sure it felt great. There is a 1969 FBI memo about him. Apparently his FBI file is like over 300 pages long.
Oh, of course. Of
Yeah.
course. They had nothing better to do at that time.
Oh yeah. And they so in this memo from 69, they said that he had a history of fraudulent military enlistments, which I have some questions about because I
Okay.
didn't find anything else regarding that.
What does that even mean? Like he joined the French Foreign Legion or something? Off and on?
Or like, did he try to join, or did he claim that he joined different branches? Like, I don't know what that's about. Manipulative behavior, difficulty with authority, strong and poorly controlled hostility, guilt, anxiety, and homosexuality,
All right.
among other issues. Those are all.
I love that's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got to write that in there. Homosexuality, yeah.
The
Gotta
history
check
of
that box.
homosexuality. He did recover, and he attributed that to his strong faith in God.
All right.
He then attended a bunch of different Bible colleges, and he actually worked with Billy James Hargis, who is a radio evangelist, fire and brimstone guy,
Oh,
and
great.
lost the job when Billy James Hargis found out he was gay. Interesting, Billy James Hargis actually was. I don't really know the whole story, but he was caught with another man at some
Of
point.
course. That's like the
Yeah.
trajectory. That's like the perfect trajectory for these kind of people.
Oh, yeah. In 1964, he supported Alabama Governor George Wallace's challenge against President Lyndon Johnson in the
Mhm.
Democratic primaries. And for those who are like, Wallace, who is that? Wallace is the guy that you saw a picture of in your US history textbook, standing in front of a building refusing to let Black college students walk onto the campus of the University of Alabama. That's George
Yeah,
Wallace.
but you're not gonna find that in many American history books these days,
Oh my
so
god. Oh, we
so
live in the worst timeline. Um, and as a historian, it's like there's been some pretty rough moments.
Do you have
Um
a moment for a quick USA chant? USA, USA. Come on, everybody.
Always, always.
Alright, good.
Let's feel very patriotic. Um, around the same time, Broshears became involved in the civil rights movement, which is weird.
Alright. Yeah.
Which is
Uh,
weird.
yeah.
He claims though, and this is fair. He claims that as he traveled through the South, he saw like Jim Crow and realized that it was bad.
Yeah.
So like, I'm pro people changing their minds.
Yeah, of course.
If that's what
It
happened, which who knows with him, but like seems like it. He was arrested in 1965 after a sit-in demonstration against racial discrimination in Belleville, Illinois. And you read that and you think, okay, yeah, like people were arrested at these sit-ins all the
Mhm.
time. That's not why he was arrested.
Oh god, now what?
He was arrested for having groped a 17-year-old boy.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, and he claimed that it wasn't child molestation because the boy had his clothes on the whole time.
He claimed that?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
This guy is complicated.
He is complicated. It's I can't do what I usually do and just like a person or don't like a person. I'm like, I have to there's
No, with this guy, you've got to like and dislike his actions
Yeah.
because he's so complicated.
I'm
But
surprised that I thought it would be like something the police threw at him, but he's saying it himself. All right. Okay,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
Dig
he's
your
like,
own grave.
I did that. I just don't think it's a big deal.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Oh my.
he's honest, I guess. But like as we go through all these various moments in his life, it is not that this is excuses none of it.
Yeah.
Um, but you can look at what he experienced earlier in his life and be like,
Sure.
I can see how that
Yeah.
came out that way. And I say that just before anybody comes at me. I say that as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. Like it's it
Yeah, you
makes
got
sense.
Yeah,
And people didn't go to therapy in those days.
that's true.
So the judge disagreed with Broshears' assessment of what
Okay.
was and was not child molestation and imprisoned him for 6 months
Hmm.
in county jail. And it was in that time in jail when he really cemented his hatred of the police.
This
Like,
guy's got to calm down. Okay, I'm back to liking him now.
yep.
Okay.
Just wait.
Oh god. All right, I'm not going to talk for the rest of
It's
this podcast.
it's your like and dislikes gonna like
All right.
yo-yo. Um and so once he was out of prison, he was like, I'm done with rural America. And he bought a one-way ticket to San Francisco.
Okay.
And
Man,
this
he's
is a
speed running being gay.
yeah, actually, so this is a quote from him. He said that he went to San Francisco to quote become a faggot.
All right.
Yeah. So San Francisco, we just kind of take for granted that it's like a place where there are a lot of gay people, but it's been like that for a really long time.
Yeah.
So it got its start as a place that was friendly to gay people during the gold rush because San Francisco's population exploded from 800 people in 1848 to 35,000 people in 1850.
Mhm.
And 95% of those people were men.
There you go.
Yeah, so there was a huge gender ratio balance issue, which created a environment where there was more acceptance of a more expansive view of gender. And so lots of queer experimentation, a lot of cross-dressing, stuff like that. That became even more so in World War I and World War II when the US military began the practice of the blue discharge. So blue discharges were neither honorable nor dishonorable. And most of the time, they would be applied to gay servicemen.
Mhm.
So it was a way of discharging someone from the military for being gay, but not giving them a dishonorable discharge.
Yeah, that's so
And
nice of them.
I know, right? But it was also a matter of public record
Oh,
when this happened.
no.
And a blue discharge could be any number of things, but usually it meant
Yeah, I
gay.
mean, and that follows you, so
Yeah.
that ain't
So
good.
a lot of these guys, especially the ones who were in the Pacific Theater, they, came back from the Pacific Theater in World War II, landed in San Francisco, and just didn't leave. So this is really how San Francisco became what we think of it as today.
I never knew that. That's really
Yeah.
interesting, like, that it started with the gold rush and everything. And thinking
Yeah,
about,
well, I
like,
knew
the ratio of men to the women at the time, it was, like, oh, insane. I'd never thought about that, but
I knew it had gotten started with the gold rush because I went to tour guide school in San Francisco, and that was one of the things they talked about was how, like, everything we were walking on was, like, built on the old ships that people had abandoned
oh,
in the
yeah.
harbor. Like, there's whole neighborhoods that are just built on old boats, that are like landfill basically at this
Yeah.
point. Um, we think here in Philadelphia that, you dig and you find something interesting every time. They've got it even more so than we do. Because they dig and they're not digging into dirt, they're digging into a boat. Um, so Broshears comes, he settles in the Tenderloin, which is a neighborhood in San Francisco long associated with violence, crime, and sex workers. When I was in San Francisco,
Okay.
I was there for 2 weeks, and I stayed at 2 different hostels. And the first hostel, they explicitly told me not to go to the Tenderloin, and this was back in 2013, I think. So, like, San Francisco was well into its, like, super gentrification era.
Mhm.
So, I don't know how true that was, to be honest, especially now that I live in West Philly in a place that people would be like, "Oh, don't go there." So, it was probably nonsense, but
The Tenderloin sounds like such a interesting place to go to, though. Sounds like
yeah,
a
well, I
gay
mean,
club, really. The
I didn't
Tenderloin.
go. The story, I don't know if this is true, but the story I've heard is that it got its name because they had to, like, pay the police more to work there so they could afford a better cut of meat. I don't know if that's true or if
Alright.
it's tour guideism,
Yeah, yeah.
but that's what someone told me.
Hey, if it makes an interesting story.
Sure. So he settles in the Tenderloin and he began a ministry fighting for the liberation fighting for liberation for runaway gay youths, transgender persons, drag queens, the elderly, and the poor who he felt were being ignored by politicians and the gay elite alike.
Damn.
Not to mention that they were constantly being harassed by cops.
Yeah.
And I say a ministry, it was a ministry. Like he wore like a clerical collar
Oh, he
all the
went all
time.
in.
Oh yeah, all in. He also single-handedly ran a bunch of organizations that provided important things like free legal representation for sex workers and the homeless, brought meals to the housebound, and advocated for rent control. He also became a licensed bail bondsman so he could get young gay men out of jail when the cops arrested them.
Jeez.
I know,
Okay.
right? Like, go grow Broshears. Here's another quote from him about this time. Christ ministered to the needs of his people. When people were hungry, he fed them. Christ wasn't quiet either. He was a rebel. Yeah,
Alright. A Christian actually listening to Jesus's teachings.
I
Alright.
know,
I
right?
can appreciate that.
This is what I'm saying. Like, you gotta, like, with this guy, you've got to look at his actions and, like, assess each individual action on its
Yeah.
own because this stuff's great. I am pro these things. Um, at this time, across the country, the police were regularly raiding gay bars.
Yeah. So
I was
are
just
we at the 60s now? Are we in the 60s?
yeah, we're in the 60s.
Okay.
And so San Francisco
Yeah.
was no exception, especially because there was especially in San Francisco, it was kind of a thing at that time to be, how we in the 90s we had tough on crime politicians?
Mhm.
They had anti-vice politicians.
Uh,
And that was like a thing. Like unless you said you were anti-vice, you weren't gonna get elected. The even greater threat though wasn't even the police, it was violence from young straight men. And
oh
this is
god, here we
actually
go.
this is more complicated than it seems. So obviously there was homophobia.
Yeah.
That's part of it. But it wasn't just that. So there was a very large Hispanic community in San Francisco, and they were getting gentrified out
Mm.
by the gay community.
Oh.
And so they were feeling a lot of frustration, but that frustration was with the middle class gay people who were like gentrifying the Castro,
Yeah.
not these like underage runaways and
Yeah,
sex
not the run.
workers in the Tenderloin.
Yeah.
So they were going after the wrong people. But that was a huge issue. These like little groups of like teenage boys would come and beat people up. It was really
Great.
terrible.
Just great.
Yeah. The 1960s was also a time of gay political organizing in the city. So in 61, in response to increased police raids of gay bars, Jose Sarria, a drag performer and waiter, became the first openly gay person to seek public office in the United States.
Oh, okay.
He ran for one of 5 open seats on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. He didn't win, but he got 6,000 votes and came in 9th out of 30 candidates.
That ain't bad.
No, it's not bad. And it proved that the gay community could be a powerful voting bloc in San Francisco. Which
That's
I don't
a
know.
start. You're just they're saying, hey, we're here.
I don't know why it took that long to figure that out.
Yeah.
But whatever. And so at that point, political organizations started popping up like daisies. We have the League for Civil Education, which was now this is a word I haven't explained yet. The word that was considered the correct word for gay people at the time was homophile.
Yeah. I remember when I was doing my research for Kiyoshi Kuramiya.
Yes.
Who is a very interesting person. You should look him up, fans of the Witches of History.
Oh, yes. If you haven't, you should listen to the episode.
And but yeah, he would that's what it was called back, the homophile movement. So yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds weird to our ears, but that's
yeah, but I mean
they were trying to separate from the idea that all this was related to sex.
Yeah. And there's a lot worse things that they were being called at the time. So this name was we'll go with this one for now.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So the League for Civil Education, a homophile organization that encouraged gay residents to register to vote.
Okay.
So, the Tavern Guild, which was a group of gay bar owners who coordinated their responses to harassment from police.
Yeah.
And the big famous one is the Society for Individual Rights, also known as SIR.
SIR.
Yeah, and it's a homophile organization that registered voters, staged protests, and hosted candidate forums. And they were really the big name in town. And so Broshears, when he came to San Francisco, he joined SIR and also the Gay Activists Alliance, which was a New York City-based organization, but they had a chapter in San Francisco.
Okay.
Both organizations claimed to be nonpartisan, but were also at the same time pushing for gay unity politically, because the idea was this would make the gay community more powerful politically. So the idea was like, let's just pick a party and go for it.
Okay.
And they picked the Democrats because a lot of the people who were doing the organizing had a history of like being involved in like socialist protests and things like that. So they had leftist leanings, so they were going to go to the Democrats.
All right, Raymond, how do you feel about all this, buddy?
So it's important to understand before I say what he felt about it, that at the time, both parties were really terrible towards gay people.
At the time? At the time.
I mean, so I know growing up as a kid, like the Democrats would sometimes be like, okay, I don't believe in gay marriage, but I don't think we should like kill them.
Yeah. On this one topic, yes, there is a big difference. So
yeah, there was not a big difference. There was no difference really on this topic at the time. They were both extremely against gay rights, and so what that meant was that when gay people or gay organizations supported candidates, it had more to do with their other politics outside of gay rights, because nobody was advocating for gay rights. It also makes sense in that environment why some gay people would swing Republican, because Republican was the party of small government. Republicans were the party of just leave us alone and let us do our own thing. So it makes sense from a like purely like stepping back and looking at the like sort of what the parties are supposed to philosophically believe perspective. And so Broshears was very much a Republican. In part also because he just didn't trust the government. It was like,
I mean, you could do that not being a Republican too, but sure, pick up, yeah.
You know, people make the choices they make.
It is what it is.
And he became increasingly annoyed with these so-called nonpartisan organizations only giving support to Democrats.
Hmm.
In 1969, Dianne Feinstein, who you
Oh.
might know as the extremely old senator from California,
Oh.
she ran for San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and she included the gay community as part of her coalition.
Yeah.
So this was a new thing. And she won. And she didn't just win, but she won the most votes. So she became president of the board. She was the first woman to hold that position, and that was in thanks to the gay community. The issue was then these Democrats started to find out that the gay community could provide that little bump that they
Yeah.
needed.
Get a little oomph.
But then as soon as they were in office,
Nope.
comes the word.
Nope. Thanks. See you later.
Yeah, so Broshears called the like elite middle class gay people the grand gays,
The
which
grand gaze.
is great. I'm here for it. And he thought it was ridiculous that they thought the future was putting pressure on the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
And so he was over it. And so he said, I'm going to form my own nonpartisan organization that's actually going to be nonpartisan.
Okay.
1971, he started the Gay Voters League. And in the beginning, it was mostly other conservatives who were like just kind of done with Sir. But there's other people joined too. And he invited all candidates running for a position to speak to the Gay Voters League and endorsed the most pro-gay candidates regardless of their political party.
All right.
So its first endorsements in 1972 were 3 Democrats and 5 Republicans. Which is sort of interesting because that 72, they endorsed Richard Nixon.
Oh.
Which seems interesting because McGovern was running, when he ran for the Democratic primary, he spoke very positively towards the gay community. And
Did he really?
Yeah, but then as soon as he had the nomination, he never mentioned it again.
God damn it.
And so because of that, Broshears was like, listen, at least you know what you're getting with the Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many times you can get the shaft, you know?
Yeah.
Before you wise up and like, you know what? These people don't actually care about us. They're just using us.
Mm-hmm. And he had his own publication called The Gay Crusader.
Oh, okay.
Which is also he was very good at naming things.
I like it.
Yeah. And he would publish endorsements from every gay organization in San Francisco, which no other publication did.
Okay, cool.
So he really did care about this like
Yeah.
nonpartisan thing. This wasn't like one of those things where like, you know, when you're in a Facebook group and somebody gets mad because they're not allowed to be racist or something.
Yeah.
And then they start a group, like an alternate Facebook group that's like this group, but
racist.
But no fascist mods or whatever. And it's just all the like arch conservatives running over there. He was
right.
that wasn't what was happening here. Like he was actually, believed in nonpartisanship.
Yeah.
And so he saw the whole McGovern thing as proof that there was just like this, that at least that like the Democrats were just going to keep humiliating the gay community. He did a lot of wild demonstrations. He was this is one thing I loved about, I can never remember his name.
Kiyoshi?
Yeah, he had some wild demonstrations.
He
too.
did.
They had this in common. So the one that I wrote down was Broshears staged a fake crucifixion on the steps of a telephone company.
What?
That had discriminatory hiring practices.
Oh my gosh.
And
were they doing like on telephone poles or something? Jeez.
I'm not sure. It was a little unclear to me how that works.
Okay.
And he was interviewed after that protest, and he said, quote, nothing disgusts me more than a faggot on the sideline.
Oh.
I know, right? He did not do things by half.
Yeah. He's got away with words.
Yes, he does. In 1973, he decided he was done with all of the harassment from these young men, and the police weren't doing anything about it in the Tenderloin. So he founded the Lavender Panthers. And I mean, it was basically the same thing that the Black Panthers were doing, except for the gay community.
Yeah.
And he straight up, like, he said that, like, he styled it after the Black Panthers. Like, he wasn't, like, trying to pretend that.
Well, I mean, the Black Panthers were, I don't know. Yeah, at this time,
they were Oakland. Yeah.
They were very pro-gay.
They had no connection to the Lavender Panthers, though.
Okay.
I don't think for any particular reason. They just didn't. The Lavender Panthers weren't around for that long. But he started the Lavender Panthers to basically try to make the Tenderloin safer for its residents. And he continued to work with Republican politicians, including this guy, Dwight Tripp III, which I think is a great name because his name is basically Dwight Tripp. Because people who are the
You
third,
would catch that, Vega. You would catch
people
that.
who are the third oftentimes go by Tripp.
Yeah, I like
triple.
it.
But anyway,
Trip.
so I know that because of Star Trek.
Of course you do.
I
forgot who I was talking to for a second.
So, Dwight Tripp III did not win his race, but he still, in 1976, appointed Broshears to the Republican State Central Committee, making him the first openly gay person to serve on the RSCC.
All right.
Tripp said, and this is a quote from Dwight Tripp, that it was, quote, time for an open, upfront homosexual to become active in the Republican Party.
All right, there we go.
Yep. 1977, Broshears founded the Teddy Roosevelt Republican Club, which was the first gay Republican club in the nation. Their goal was to, quote, lobby Republican legislatures to change their attitudes towards gay rights and, quote, lend visible support to those legislators who want to support gay rights legislations but fear to do so because of the visible absence of gay Republican support.
I mean, Teddy Roosevelt was our gayest president, so good choice.
And I would disagree with that. Lincoln was like sleeping in the same bed as his Secret Service agents.
There you go. What's happening there?
He picked Teddy Roosevelt because he saw Teddy Roosevelt as a maverick who fought against his own party.
Yeah.
Which was true. He attended the state Republican convention, and he did have a success there. He handed out a bunch of pamphlets that had the title 2,500,000 votes unwanted by the GOP. And explained that many elections in Southern California had been lost by just a few thousand votes.
There you go.
And so he asserted that, gay votes should not be assumed to be Democratic votes.
Yeah.
In it, he wrote, Republicanism is a philosophy that is far closer to the hearts of gay people than is the extreme liberalism of the Democratic Party.
Oh, okay.
But the gay voter does not wish to become involved in the GOP or even vote for Republican because of the extreme hate expressed towards gay people by certain GOP persons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's right.
And apparently this worked because after the convention, 6 more openly gay men were appointed to the Republican State Central Committee.
Damn. All right.
Which was, by the way, more gay people than the Democrats had in their similar organization.
God.
Which is weird.
Rooting for the Republicans.
I know, right? It's weird. In 1977,
I feel so dirty.
I know. Broshears he just takes whatever you think you know and is like, let's turn it upside down and inside out.
Yeah, right.
And in 1977, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego had their own gay Republican clubs, all of which were related to Broshears in some way. Like the people who founded them went and spoke to Broshears and then went back and did their thing.
Okay.
That said, around that time, Broshears' behavior also became more erratic. This is the late 70s. So I said that his successful thing at the Republican National Convention, or state, I said national? State. I'm sorry.
Okay, state convention.
State convention. State convention. I wrote
was like, damn, all right.
Yeah. Ooh, boy, no. State convention. He didn't just hand out pamphlets. He also called a politician a fascist by yelling in the middle of his speech.
All right. Of the politician's speech?
Yeah.
Okay.
He just stood up and yelled, fascist!
I appreciate this.
And so that happened. He also, and this is another one. He began to think the CIA and the FBI were poisoning him, which, to be fair,
okay,
was a thing the CIA and the FBI did in those days.
Yes. If you look at their track record, that's right there.
I don't think they were.
Okay.
I don't think he was important enough, frankly. But that would be
not important enough to be poisoned by the CIA and the FBI. That's kind of like a downer.
Also, well, the CIA certainly, because CIA doesn't handle domestic matters.
Yeah. Well, the FBI needed a little help that day.
Yeah, the
They were
CIA
short-staffed.
also, I think, was a little more eager to do the sort of weird assassination thing. But he did have, like, files in the FBI, so, like, it wasn't, like, a completely bonkers thing. He
Yeah,
was
I mean,
being
you said
watched.
300 plus pages?
Yeah, like
Jeez, that's a lot of pages.
yeah, you hear somebody saying that the FBI is poisoning them, and you're like, "Hmm, we've got some mental health stuff going on here." But, like,
Well,
they were watching him.
yeah, I mean, that's not too far off to believe that.
Yeah,
Not
like,
too
it's
far
hard
off.
like, yes, could that have been a sign of schizophrenia? 100%. Could it also have actually been happening? Also 100%. So, like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Um, he also started becoming super racist and using
Oh, here
racial
we go. Okay.
epithets, and was reported to be a lech around young men he helped. So, he's back on his old tricks.
Mm. Come on, Ray.
He had to end the Lavender Panthers in not 1774, that would be wild.
Oh, geez, damn. How
He had to
progressive.
end the Lavender Panthers in 1974 because they attacked some juveniles who were throwing water balloons at a popular gay bar and basically beat the snot out of them, and the parents complained to the police because they were
I mean,
juveniles.
rightfully so.
Yeah, I mean, they were
Water
throwing water
balloons?
balloons. I know, I'm
At
like,
least
"That
throw water
sucks."
balloons back at them.
Right, like, that sucks, but, like, water balloons don't hurt anybody unless
Yeah.
you're allergic to water, I guess, but I don't know that that's a thing. So the Republican Party was starting to regret attaching themselves to him. And so they were like looking around for some other gay Republican clubs and
Oh,
gay
God.
Republicans to support.
Their
And
token gay man is no longer viable.
yeah, I don't know how you look at his record and go, yes, this is someone we want to like have in the establishment.
Hey, the Republicans.
Like,
Shrug.
I think people like Broshears are necessary, and I don't think he was ever gonna get along in the establishment.
Yeah.
Like, that's just not how the establishment works. But, uh but because Broshears was being increasingly erratic and his organization of the Teddy Roosevelt Club was, like, just terrible, people started forming their own Republican clubs. And, like, the Concerned Republicans for Individual Rights, which was not an explicitly gay club, but it was a gay club.
Mhm.
And the Lincoln Republicans of Southern California,
All right.
which might sound familiar because that was the precursor to the Log Cabin Republicans.
Ah.
And they openly stated in their like charter that they were inspired by Broshears' organization.
Okay.
They didn't say like, but we just left because he was like nuts. But it was
They should have.
just implied.
Best opening to a charter ever anywhere.
And so these new organizations pushed for gay rights, but did not openly attack GOP politicians who were homophobic, which was a big difference between Broshears.
Oh, he would attack them.
Yeah.
That's his go-to.
And that's kind of what we see with the modern log cabin Republicans. They really are really focused on gay rights and are kind of mum about a lot of other stuff. And a lot of them actually think that we've achieved it. Gay rights happened. It's
Yeah.
over because we have gay marriage. We have in most places.
You wait.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. The we have like equal housing and equal employment. So they're like, okay, we did it. We're done.
Yeah, I have a gay friend. It's okay. Everything's fine.
It is, I think, notable that most log cabin Republicans are white men.
Noted.
So they are, besides the fact that they are gay, you know, like the world is set up for them.
Yeah.
Um,
Racism also ended at 1865 as well, for everybody to know.
oh
that.
yeah, absolutely.
So we're
Except in the
good.
Mormon Church, that didn't end until 1976, I think.
They're still
uh,
playing catch up. Don't worry. They'll come around.
So the blah, blah, blah. Okay, Broshears at this time, his health is declining and he's becoming more reclusive. And in 1982, he died of a cerebral hemorrhage, just shy of his 47th birthday. And this is really sad. He wasn't found until 3 days after he had died.
Damn, that sucks.
Yeah. He didn't have a lot of friends. One of the people who was interviewed about the last years of his life was this lesbian who had like worked at a radio company that he would call and like yell at, and she befriended him because she just kind of felt bad for him. Like
All
she's
right.
like, I think he was just lonely
Yeah.
because he probably was.
I mean, damn, 3 days.
Yeah,
That sucks.
yeah. But he did write his own obituary before he died,
Oh, here we go.
which is a baller move. Especially because it was like a cerebral hemorrhage. Like what was happening here?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, he saw it coming. I don't know.
I guess. Um, so his legacy was mixed, all told. It's pretty clear
Yeah.
why we tend to talk about the Harvey Milks more than we talk about the Broshears. But there are 2 quotes about his legacy that I think sum him up perfectly. One of them is from Randy Johnson, who was another activist at the time, and he said, "He did all the right things in the wrong way."
All right. All
And
right.
of course, we have to have Broshears' own closing to his obituary,
Okay. I'm
his
ready.
sum up of his life. Ray has been around.
That's it?
That's it.
I love it.
I
I'm
know,
okay with
right?
that.
I know. I'm into it. And I just think it's interesting because I mean we see this in sort of mainstream history all the time of which activists do we like to remember.
Yeah.
So MLK has a big old statue in Washington D.C.
Mhm.
Malcolm X does not.
Mm.
And I am not equating Malcolm X to Broshears. I think there is a
No, I not
significant difference between those
yes.
men. But what is similar is the idea of A, are we using violence? And B, how unpleasant are we going to be to the people we're fighting against?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like MLK was all about like stopping traffic. That was like the was it Edmund Pettus Bridge?
Mhm.
So they were like blocking traffic.
Yeah.
Which is why, by the way, this is a pet peeve of mine when people complain about protesters blocking traffic. I mean, like they should protest like MLK. That's what MLK did.
There's a lot of things about MLK people do not know about.
Like
That man continues to be
like
whitewashed.
they're doing it. They're doing the nonviolent thing.
Yeah, right. It's like, what else do you want?
They want it to not be happening. I mean, I get it. If I was
Yeah.
if I was
There you
stuck on
go.
the Golden Gate Bridge for 6 hours, I'd be pretty annoyed too. But like, I also would have been like, "This sucks that I'm stuck on this bridge."
Yeah.
But like,
Well,
I
I
get
mean,
it.
you gotta have an ounce of solidarity a little bit.
Right. Like at
Depends on what
least
they're protesting
philosophically.
about, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm referring to specific. It was a pro-Palestinian protest, so I would have been like, "Good going," but I would love to have a bathroom.
Yeah.
You know, it's still inconvenient, even if you are in favor. And I just think that people like Broshears get forgotten because they're inconvenient in a lot of ways.
Yeah, he's harder to like what you brought up Harvey Milk. I think his history is easier. It's more palatable to remember than
Yeah,
somebody like Brashears or, uh Malcolm X.
yeah,
So,
because Harvey Milk was very much an establishment guy.
yeah.
Like he was actually a Republican before he came to San Francisco.
Yeah.
He worked on Wall Street. And then when he ran for the board of supervisors or whatever, he was like talking about things that any politician talked about. Like actually this book had a quote from Harvey Milk talking about how a lot of gay people were really concerned about real estate
Hmm.
because a lot of people like him, like he owned a store in the
Mhm.
Castro. They were concerned about the things that people who own property are concerned about, like
Yeah.
property taxes and safety and all these things. And what was it? He said that their checkbooks are out of the closet, even if they are not.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, they're still citizens. Just because they're gay doesn't take away anything else. I mean, they're
Well,
still
sure. People are just out here doing their best. They don't
yeah,
always
people are
have
just trying to live, so let them live.
they
They
don't
don't
always have the solidarity they should, which is
Yeah,
why we have to teach about solidarity.
there
But
we go.
I do have a lot of respect for Broshears, like going to the Tenderloin and focusing on that
Yeah.
and not the I mean, there was a kind of an establishment at this point of gays who were trying to get into politics,
Mhm.
and he, I think,
Y
recognized them for what they were,
Yeah.
and I think we needed both. This is I
Sometimes
always
you gotta
say,
play the game.
yeah, like, so I oftentimes like to say that, like, MLK would not have been as successful as he was without Malcolm X,
Mhm.
and I don't think Malcolm X would have been successful without MLK.
Yeah.
Like, I think they needed each other, and I think they knew that. Um, but the when when MLK came to speak at Girard College, Cecil B. Moore, the Philadelphia civil rights leader. I'm
Mhm.
trying to remember heard if I heard that on your podcast or someone else, but
You might have. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I already knew about it, but, like, whichever podcast I listened to, I was very sad because they missed
It
that.
was ours.
Well
If you're sad, it
well,
was our podcast.
because MLK, when he was talking at Girard College, which was a segregated, school in
Yes.
Philadelphia, Cecil B. Moore was walking in around the audience and saying to people, "We don't do that nonviolence thing here because it's Philly."
Yeah. He's a little bit of a badass.
Yeah. So, I think, you need
You
both
need both. Yeah.
because I don't think either approach works on its own.
Yeah. I mean, we can just chalk up this whole episode to be like, things are a little bit more complicated than you think. It's not, you don't have two choices, you know? It's not just yin
And
and yang. There's gray area. And, I think like mostly, we just have to venture into the gray area over
yeah.
the time.
Yeah,
So,
and also, like, recognize that nobody's going to be the perfect politician or
or person.
leader or person.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of I'm gonna sound very old right now. I'm seeing a lot of kids on TikTok
Oh, good start.
who
It's
are
almost your
feeling
bedtime. It's almost like 1 o'clock
I
in the
know,
afternoon.
right?
Okay,
It's like I need to go get
you
my,
got to take your nap.
I've actually been taking naps lately. It's been great. Um, so, but I see a lot of people expressing frustration with their options for the presidential election.
Oh, yeah.
And I do not disagree with the frustration around Biden and his policies towards Gaza and so forth. Although he has been moving in the right direction, just like snail's pace. But
Mhm.
that's more than a lot of
This is
people
yeah.
that's more than a lot of politicians his age would do. That's all I'm saying. But they don't I'm hearing a lot of people saying they either don't want to vote or they are going to throw away their vote or whatever. And I understand that perspective because we're going to hell in a handbasket. So why would you vote for the guy in charge? But like Trump is different.
Trump is different.
And we're never going to get perfection from whoever the Democrats nominate.
We
It's
got to
not.
do something. Either you got to slow. I think the voting is a slow way to do it, but maybe it's a safer
You
way.
can do both.
You can do both. Like you said, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You can do both.
Then the same person can do both.
Yeah, but
Like,
you need to have first of all a little bit of solidarity with your fellow workers and
yep.
fellow gays and everybody, and you gotta do you gotta vote and you gotta revolt.
Yeah. And you
Vote
can
and
do both at
revolt.
the same
You can do
time. And
a little bit of
like
both.
it's
Especially when like
yeah.
when it's like not it's just presidential, but smaller
Mhm.
city supervisor, voting
Oh
for
yeah.
stuff like that.
That's the stuff that's really important.
Yeah.
Like in West Philly, we voted a couple years ago. I guess it's been a while now. We voted out someone who was part of this like political dynasty here in Philadelphia. It was like her husband had been in the office for like 20 or 30 years, and then she
Yeah.
was in the office for like 20 or 30 years. And she was voted out. And the person we have now isn't perfect, but her heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
And she's trying. She just approved a project that's going to put in an apartment unit in our neighborhood, but 20% of the apartments are going to be guaranteed low income.
Good.
And she said, like, that's what she's looking for. If these developers want variances that she needs to approve,
Yeah.
is she'll approve them if there is some sort of stipulation for lower income residents.
Yeah.
And people are upset with her for approving any apartment complex. But, you know, she's trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, she's trying.
I'm glad I'm not making those choices. That's all I'm saying. It's a lot easier to stand here behind the microphone and criticize.
Oh, it's a whole lot easier being a podcaster. I love this job. I don't have to make any decisions.
It's like,
Besides, which of my jokes do I edit out?
yeah.
All of them.
Yeah, that's the tough thing now. We're doing video, and it's like, oh, you can see every time you cut something, so you have to
Yeah,
be really
that's the trouble with that.
Okay, so that's Reverend Broshears.
Thank you.
I definitely recommend that book, even though I've only read like 100 pages of it so far. But those 100 pages were great. And I'll link it below if anybody wants to peruse that.
Awesome.
And yeah, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for bringing me along. This was a very interesting topic. As you said, it went all over the place. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But it was a journey.
And this is like edited. Like I went in and I was like, I have 6 pages. I had 6 full pages. And I was like, I need to this is too much.
I'm sure there's a lot more in there that, I mean, we don't want this episode to be 10 hours long, but I'm sure there was a whole lot more that, we could have. I mean, there's a whole book.
That, and
there you
also,
go.
I wasn't able to do real research on this guy in the way I normally do because it was a last minute thing. So I'm sure there's stuff I don't even know about. Like he's probably worth looking into, I guess, is the takeaway. Okay. Well, thank you.
Well, there you go. D-listers of history.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to D-listers of history. If you enjoy what we do, we appreciate a subscription or a follow or a review or whatever is appropriate for the platform you're listening on. We are both on YouTube and all the various podcatchers. If you would like to follow us on social media, we are D-listers of history without a hyphen, just the letter D, listers of history. You can also go to our website, dlistersofhistory.com, for links to all of those. We also have a Substack where we have further information about whatever it is that we are talking about that week. We are a weekly podcast. Next week, we will have a sidebar episode where we will talk about a current event of some sort and the historical context around it. And the week after that, we'll have another biography episode. This time, hopefully, will be our Mazzalisode, talking about the Industrial Revolution and the sewing machine, which I'm really excited about. Okay, and have a fantastic week. Take care of yourself. And here is your episode relevant audio drop.
We have a congregation, and please don't put us in the Pentecostal bag. I was in that for many years. I love the Pentecostal people, but you cannot sell hellfire damnation because people aren't believing it, because people will become enlightened, and they're waking up to the realization that God is everywhere in you, and he's not a physical entity. And this is what we are bringing people into an awareness. Okay.